Good morning to all my friends and family, and welcome to this episode of Jim's 5am Club. What I'd love to do on this most perfect Sydney winter's morning is to go through a book, and the book that I've selected for today's episode is entitled How a Highly Focused Life Unlocks Extraordinary Success. This book was authored by a gentleman named Dr. Christian Busch. So let's have a walk and talk and discuss some of the key lessons that come from this book, see what we can learn, what we can incorporate into our inventory of skills, knowledge and wisdom, and of course things that we may be able to leverage and lead to better decision making and a better outlook on life. So the first key message to come from this author is where he reminds us that intentional focus drives clarity. Let's examine this a little bit more deeply. What he's saying here is that when one narrows their attention, they're able to cut through distraction and begin to see life and the opportunities around a lot more clearly. Focus filters out the noise and gives one a better opportunity of seeing and experiencing reality as it truly is. Because what happens is that the brain is involved in a thing called predictive processing. So your brain doesn't actually reflect what is going on 100%. What it does is the brain can add, it can delete, and it can distort in order to match your expectation, whatever that expectation may be. And for that reason, what the author here is saying is that we need to clear out the distractions so that we don't have noise impacting our ability to process, so that whatever the brain is processing and predicting is based on limited distortion. The next key message to come from this book, from this author, is where he reminds us that fine-tuning is really important, because it's the small adjustments that one makes that yields the biggest results. We're not talking about making knee-jerk reactions. What the author here reminds us of is that it's the small fine-tuning adjustments that you make that have the biggest impact. Tiny shifts in where and how you focus your energy can lead to exponential growth, is the message that comes from this book, and something very important to each and every one of us, especially during practice and when we're trying to pick up new skills. The author also goes on to say that it's important to also eliminate the activities, the habits, and the people in our lives who are deemed to be energy drainers, people's habits or thoughts that consistently pull us away from our goals must be removed or managed to preserve and maintain the necessary momentum in your life. Another thing that the author says here, which is really, really key and important, is that our attention is our most important and valuable asset in a world that is full of distractions. It's easy to be rediverted or distracted away from the things that you should be spending most of your time on. And that's why the author says here that your attention is a huge asset, something that needs to be protected, maintained, and preserved. Because in the age of information overload, where you place your attention determines in a big way your productivity, your creativity, and your well-being. Another message to come from this book is where the author talks about multitasking, and he reminds us that multitasking is indeed a myth. Productivity and big results come from the deep work, because working deeply on a single task allows your brain to perform at its very best. When one spreads attention too thinly, leads to mediocre outcomes at best. Another message to come from the author here is where he reminds us that we need to be organised and structured in what we do, and to help us with our focus. The message here is that we need to create rituals that reinforce focus, routines such as morning reflections, time blocks, and no phone zones are the sorts of things that we can do to anchor your attention where it matters most and where it can deliver the biggest bang for the buck. Another beautiful message that comes from this book is that progress, productivity, and success leaves clues in the details. It leaves footprints in the sand, and what you pay attention to shapes what you will discover. By looking closely, you begin to spot hidden patterns and powerful insights. Focus builds self-awareness. When you're present and intentional, you're more attuned to your values. You're more attuned to the triggers, and you're more attuned to the motivations. And all of these things are a powerful key to establishing self-mastery. The next point the author makes here is another powerful one as well, that you need to say no in order to protect your yes. You need to say no in order to build the space to make room for the things that are more important and more valuable in your mission in life. The more focused your life is, the more you must decline all of the misaligned opportunities, even if they sound urgent and exciting at the time. And the last message to come from this book is where the author states that mastery only comes from depth, not from breadth. Truly exceptional results come from going deep into a few areas, being specialized, not skimming the surface of many things. So thank you very much for joining me on this episode of Jim's 5am Club, where I'm coming to you from Meadowbank just before sunrise on, as I mentioned before, what appears to be a spectacular Sydney winter's morning. No, not a cloud in the sky, not a breath of breeze, and the temperature is quite mild, a lot more milder than what it was yesterday. Take care, everybody. Wishing you all the best, and thank you for joining me once again. Yassas, and bye for now.